So about 6 months ago, as this whole sort of COVID thing kicked off and we all went into self-isolation and things, there was a lot of soul searching went on as to whether to keep my truck long term or do my usual trick and get rid of it at 3 or 4 years old. A friend of mine then managed to get hold of and we were planning to repurpose a shell. So we made the decision to keep the truck. Unfortunately, repurposing the shell didn't happen, but I'll get to that later because it's not the end of the world. So the decision was made to keep the truck on a long-term basis. So I ripped everything off. I did have an adder rack on, my tent was on top of the rack, etc. And it was kitted out pretty much for a weekend camper. It was good. It was doing the job. It was fine. But because I was only planning to keep it 3 or 4 years, nothing was ever permanent. So this is the first phase of 3, maybe 4 phases. So I thought I'd document it and walk you through it. So let's do this. Okay, so we might as well start with electrics. I've never been a big fan of running anything auxiliary off the main battery, only the bare essentials. So what I've done here is I've got a positive and negative feed that run across the other side of the engine bay, where I've got a fuse block and 3 relays for my auxiliary lighting. I've got a set of bumper, quarter lights in a bumper, LED bar, and I've got a set of ditch lights. That's it. The only other thing off my main battery then is the feed when it's connected. It's not connected yet because the pickup bed end is connected. I come through a 200 amp fuse, a resettable fuse, and that'll go towards the back end. It runs down through the chassis, comes out in the pickup bed for the second charging system and second battery in the pickup bed. That is all that I have running off my main battery. The auxiliary lighting across the way there, I've got the 3 relays mounted and a 3 well, it's actually a 4 fuse block system, but there's only 3 in use. They all run through to the cab, and they're all on individual switches, which are ignition switches switched obviously, so they'll only operate when the ignition is on. Actually, it's only when the engine's running will they operate, so I can't inadvertently leave the lights on either. That's pretty much the electrics at the front end complete. So what we'll do, let's move to the pickup bed, and then we'll move to the cab, because from here it runs to the pickup bed, and from the pickup bed to the cab. So let's go down the back end and have a look at that. Okay, so after the 200 amp fuse, the cables run through the chassis, and this red one here is it's an 800 amp cable, 800 amp cold cranking cable, which comes from the battery and the fuse up there. This will eventually feed the toolbox on the side of the shell, which is where I plan to put my electrics in here. From here, it'll feed the 2 sides of the pickup bed, but also this one is a 50 amp cable that I've run in to behind the seats in the cab itself, because I've actually got some electrics in there already that are on the end of this, even though they're obviously not powered up, but they're on the end of this. So let's jump into the cab next, and we'll have a look at those electrics. Back out of it, behind the main seats here, if I put the seats down, the 50 amp feed comes in just down here, underneath the original jack. And then it runs across, and at the moment I've only got some terminal strip. Now I did think about putting a proper fuse block in there, but at the end of the day the 3 feeds off there are 2 Anderson plugs and my UHF VHF. All 3 units are fused individually, so there was no need to go to further expense of putting a fuse box in there, which actually would then need to pull the seats down to get at every time. So further along on the same plinth is the main unit for my UHF VHF, and at the end of this you can just see there an Anderson plug. This is actually a spare Anderson. See it? You can see the fuse right at it. This is a spare Anderson plug I've got. it's there if I need it for anything in particular. If I come back to this side, there's another Anderson plug there, which that runs the fridge that's inside. If you're wondering what the orange cables are, these are pretty much standard house, 210 meter standard household cables. What I tend to do is, because my fridge is AC and DC, it's a Waco. If I'm sat on the drive the night before, I'll run a cable out to the house and I'll cool the fridge down that way rather than running it off the car electrics, you know. So it's just, is it needed? Probably not. But you know what? I've been using it up until now, and so I might as well continue using it, I feel. I may eventually put AC DC charger in for the split charge system eventually, which would make life easier. Okay, keeping with the communication theme, I've got the iPhone mounted on the dash on there's an arm there, a RAM arm, and then I've actually bolted right through the dashboard a ball joint from RAM. I like their gear, it's pretty solid. That said, if I swing around here, I've actually got the iPad on a flexible arm, also from RAM. But the trouble is, it's far from sturdy. So the jury's out on this one. I'm not sure whether to clamp it to the side of the dash or change it completely. I'm not 100% sure. Also, the wiring for these comms is still only temporary. I want to run them permanently inside the dash, or maybe put a USB outlet on top of the dash. So I don't like all these wires hanging around. So that's got to be changed without a doubt. Okay, continuing on the communication theme. So we saw the main unit for the radio in the boot, behind the back seat. Then up here I've got an extension speaker, and hidden away in what was the original Glasses case is the head unit, or the control unit rather. That I like to keep things factory, like I said, so this basically keeps it all hidden and out of sight when not in use. The handset is mounted down, sort of, if I move my leg in, down to the right of my knee. It's just out of sight. Again, it's out of sight. I tend to leave it there all the time, but if need be, it's purely plug and play, and it's gone. You wouldn't even know it was there. So that's again, keeps it factory. Crossing of borders, etc., makes life a little bit easier. So, not that we do anything illegal, of course. Okay, so lighting, as I said, they're all individually switched. So on this right-hand side of the steering column, I've got an original switch that I had for the LED bar. It's now used for the ditch lights, and next to that is just a clicker for my garden gate. And moving across to the other side, these two switches are, the one on the left is for the bumper quarter lights, and the one on the right is for the main LED bar on the bumper. To be honest, for what I do, this is more than enough lighting. I did think I've got a couple of big 8-inch LED spots, which I'm still considering mounting, although the jury's out on that one also. We're not 100% so sure on that yet. So on the final end of the communications is up here. I've got two little antennas mounted on the side of my rack. The little dumpy one at the forward end, that's a UHF VHF. Very unobtrusive. Looks actually like a GPS antenna, so questions don't get asked. And the one on the right is for the Wi-Fi hotspot. I've got a Wi-Fi hotspot to fit on the dash somewhere. The cables all run. It's just a case of finding a suitable location to mount it. We found in the past that it gets a far better data signal than a standard telephone. When you need one, you don't always need one. And as I've said, I've also got a temporary solution for storing my sand tracks at the moment, just on a couple of Rhino rack bars. Not the best of solutions, it's quite noisy, and I don't actually think they'll be able to go like that spacing when I'm finished, because I got a feeling the tent's going to come to where the back Rhino bar is anyway. So as far as the fit out goes, I've kept it fairly minimum. The reason I've kept it minimal at the moment in the cab is because this is also my daily driver. So I actually need to retain at least 3 seats, if not 4. So what I've done, the original storage box under the seat that you needed to lift the seat to get at is empty. It's completely empty. I do have some camping gear stored under the seat at the moment, but it's purely temporary. So I built this plinth, which sits on the floor. The part that's over the seat underneath the fridge actually hinges up out the way. So that if I need to get access under there, it's just a case of releasing the straps on the fridge, hinging it up, and I can get the back seat up. Now my long-term plan is that won't need to happen, because I plan to build a 2/3 drawer under this 2/3 of the seat, and then a separate one under this side for a 1/3. I want to keep it all modular, so that this one at the moment, all that's stored in here at the moment is some tools and a first aid kit. My plan is to build some modular stuff that I can lift out easily when we need the truck, because of school runs and the likes. But when we go away, it's usually just me and Elliot, and I would like a flat surface here for my camera gear and to work on out of the truck with my cameras, which is what I normally do. Now, it's nothing wrong with working off the seat, but it's just a little bit more convenient when if you've got the full length as a flat surface. So that's on the cards. Like I said, we kept it simple at the moment because I've got no pickup bed either, like my compressor, my recovery gear's in here. Down this side I've got a jet boil that I, for a quick cup of tea or coffee, whatever. It's all temporary storage though, because we're in the middle of, well, we haven't reached phase 2. When we get to phase 2, then I can start to move all the gear to the back end. So there we go. There's the walk around of phase 1. So where do we go to next? It's still usable. So we're off to the desert most weekends at the moment on day trips for photography, not for camping obviously. So phase 2, what's phase 2? Phase 2 then, on order at the moment, and we're waiting for delivery, but there has been delays due to COVID and shipping. There's a bed rug coming and a shell coming. Obviously the back end is the bit that's missing at the moment. So there's a bed rug, and then it's a Snug Pro Extra Vision shell to come. Now I've had it kitted out as well with toolboxes either side rather than windows. This side will be fitted out with all my recovery gear and tools. Also the electrics, auxiliary electrics will be going into this side. The far side will be kitted out with the kitchen stuff, the camping stuff, the cooker and all that sort of thing. And then on top, my tent that's strung up under the carport at the moment will go on top, and the awning on the far side as well. I've got a temporary rack on at the moment with the sand tracks because we're not sure where to store those. What I'm thinking, we may build a sort of bit of a streamlined box to go on those, that my son's cot tent will go in, so that's permanently up there out of the weather, because that's the problem that we had when we bought it. Previous owners had left it on a roof rack and the bag is just destroyed by the sun. So that's where phase 2 is going. And then further down the road, then also part of phase 2 is we'll put the chemical toilet in the tub, and then it's the second battery to go in there, and that's pretty much jerry cans for the water and the shower. That'll be phase 2. All those bits are ready to go. I'm just waiting for the bed rug to go in before I can do them. Then we move on to phase 3. Phase 3 is further fit out of the bed. I've got another fridge, a 55 litre fridge, which we want to put in there for the food. The one in the cab here we use mostly for drinks. The one in there I'd like to use for food. I like the idea of a grill also. I'm looking at a Weber grill, the small ones, but a lot depends on how much room I've got down the one side of the tub when I fit it out. Because we've also got to probably put in there sand tracks, dune flags, camping chairs, table, it's all got to go in there. Admittedly, it all comes out on location, but let's see what room we've got without it being mad. So that's phase 3. Finally then, the final phase will be sort of fine-tuning our gear. What camping gear do we need? What tools do we need to get the toolboxes right? And just the finishing off touches, the electrics of the iPads and the phones and all those sort of things. So anyway, if you like this one, hit the subscribe button and the little bell icon down wherever it is. Then you'll get to know when phase 2 is being put online. It should be a few weeks' time, hopefully. Hopefully. A lot depends on shipping. Until then, catch you soon.